Alright, everybody, welcome back to the Dank NASCAR download. This is episode 3. It's your boy G4 Stemp, Dank NASCAR memes. And today we're just going to be talking about a bunch of silly season rumors, especially after literally just 56 minutes ago, Trackhouse Racing made a huge announcement. So just about an hour ago, Justin Marks and Trackhouse Racing made an announcement at the Hall of Fame in collaboration with Chip Ganassi, saying that they are purchasing all of the assets, including the charters, of CGR. Trackhouse, if you can remember from news last week, was left originally without a charter for 2022 after Colleague Racing had bought their lease charter from Spire Motorsports. So just over a week ago, Colleague Racing announced that they would be going to the Cup Series in 2022, along with the launch of the next-gen car, and that they were buying 2 charters from Spire Motorsports. Spire is still keeping the charter for Corey LaJoie's number 7 car, but they currently had 2 others. One that they were using part-time for the 77 car that they were splitting with other drivers like Justin Haley and a bunch of other people this season, and the charter that they were leasing to Trackhouse Racing, which is currently being used by the 99 of Daniel Suarez. So Colleague bought out 2 charters, one of them being the one that was being leased currently to Trackhouse Racing, and the other that was being used for the 77. So Colleague has 2 charters, and currently Trackhouse, before today's announcement, would have been left without a charter for 2022. So it would have had to been an open car. People were wondering, was Daniel Suarez going to qualify as an open car for every race, just like Ryan Preece has this year? Or would they buy another charter, perhaps? But charters are very expensive nowadays. There's rumors going around that they're about $80 million for each charter. So it would be pretty expensive to buy. But anyways, back to the story from today. Justin Marks just said, fuck buying charters. I'm just going to buy an entire fucking race team. Clearly, they do have a lot of funding behind them. I mean, people are saying, 23XI has a lot of funding. They're the biggest team. But Trackhouse just bought out an entire racing team that has been existing for how many years? It has to be at least 15 years that Chip Ganassi Racing has been around at NASCAR. So they just bought an entire 2-car program that has had cars make the playoffs for the past, I believe, 5 years straight with Kyle Larson and Kurt Busch. They've had a win almost every year, I believe, except for 2018. So the CGR is not a small team at all. And considering Trackhouse had the money to buy out a team that big, it's pretty obvious that they got the funding behind it. Obviously, I believe Trackhouse is probably getting most of their money from Pitbull. I mean, Pitbull seems really invested in this, and plus, he's got racks. We all know that. Pitbull is very rich. He's got a huge net worth. Actually, you know what? Let me search this up on my computer right now. How much is Pitbull net worth? Pitbull's net worth is over $100 million. So yeah, it's fair to say that Pitbull's got some money. So he seems really invested in this. They got a bunch of sponsors hop on during the season. They just got Good Sam for this weekend. They got Camping World in the middle of the season. They got K1 Speed. They also got this cool-looking Tootsie's Orchid Lounge car, which I actually got to see in person in Nashville when I went. We'll talk about my experience at Nashville maybe later in the episode, or maybe I'll create like a whole new episode talking about my experience in Nashville. But Tootsie's Orchid Lounge hopped on. This is a really pretty car, as you can see in this picture over here. It looks sexy as hell. Pump It Up or something. iFly. Comscope, of course, who's been with Suarez his entire career. They've got a lot of sponsors, so clearly Trackhouse has the money to fund that second car. And I think it's exciting to see what they're going to do with it. And, of course, you can't ignore the results that Trackhouse has had this season. I mean, they've clearly been the best new team. I mean, Live Fast has pretty much been a bucket of shit. 2311 Racing has been underperforming. Their team as a whole has just not been executing. But Trackhouse, they've had all the pieces clicking. They've got a good owner. They've got a good crew chief in Travis Mack. They're literally collaborating with Hendrick and ECR because of that new alliance this year that I've talked about, which is helping all the Chevys, really. Trackhouse, I actually watched the first episode of their Get Ready documentary yesterday while I was getting ready for bed at like 1 o'clock in the morning. but their stuff is actually being built at RCR, so it's pretty much RCR equipment. I mean, people always talk about, like, oh, 23XI is Gibbs equipment. No, 2311 has their own shop. They're only getting the chassis from Joe Gibbs Racing, but they're getting the engines from TRD. They're not getting it from the Gibbs engine shop. Trackhouse Racing, like, you could literally see it's being built alongside the 3-car and the 8-car of Austin Dillon and Tyler Reddick inside the RCR shop with RCR engines and RCR mechanics. So, yeah, I think that contributes to it being better. Plus, the Chevys as a whole have been better than the Toyotas this season. And Daniel Suarez, obviously, he's a talented driver. He's won in the Truck Series. He's won in the Xfinity Series. He was the 2016 Xfinity Series champion. And, I mean, he hasn't had the success yet in the Cup Series with Joe Gibbs Racing, but it's there. Like, you see the talent there. He's shown flashes of talent with his second place at Pocono in 2018. We've seen him lead in super speedway races. He led a bunch of laps at Bristol Dirt this season, and clearly he's a good driver, and he's been making the best. This is probably the best opportunity he's had yet in his career. And I mean, just looking at the experience that Daniel Suarez and that team have been having this season, they're clicking together. Every single person in that team, they've seemed to find a lot of team chemistry really quick. I mean, Pitbull, Ty Norris, Justin Marks, Travis Mack, they seem to be working like a well-oiled machine. They already started like a few races through. They had in their second race at the Daytona Road Course, they had a P16. At Homestead, they had their first top 15. They had a top 5 at Bristol, led a lot of laps. So, I mean, everything's clicking for them early in the season. They haven't been having the growing pains that 2311 Racing has been having. And I really think that's because this is probably the best opportunity that Daniel Suarez has had in his career. And let me explain why. It's a bold take, but let me explain why I think that. So, ever since his rookie season in the Cup Series, he came into the 19 car after Carl Edwards unexpectedly retired early after almost winning a championship in 2016. So, I don't think the 19 team was completely prepared for him. Plus, he was the number 4 car at Joe Gibbs Racing. I mean, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Matt Kenseth, the older, more experienced guys who would have more wins than Suarez, who have more experience than Suarez. Obviously, they'd be a higher priority for Joe Gibbs Racing than Daniel Suarez would. And in that 27 season, Suarez had a pretty horrendous rookie year. I mean, Eric Jones in Furniture Row, a second Furniture Row car in the 77, was better than Suarez in a Gibbs car. So, I mean, after Jones left the 77 and went to Joe Gibbs Racing in 2018, where he and Suarez were both the young guys, I think they wanted to prioritize Jones higher because Jones had won Rookie of the Year over Suarez in what was theoretically supposed to be a worse-equipped car. So, I mean, I think Jones was higher on their priority list than Daniel Suarez was in 2018. And Suarez did not perform in 2018 or 2017, and Martin Truex was going to be a free agent after Furniture Row Racing closed down, and that's why Joe Gibbs eventually had to get rid of Suarez. And then in 2019 at Stewart-Haas Racing, very similar to the 2017 situation, he came in at Joe Gibbs Racing. 2019, Stewart-Haas Racing was coming off the best season in team history. I think they had like a combined maybe 10 wins or something. Every single one of their drivers won. Actually, no, they have more than 10 wins. Kurt Busch won a race. Eric Almirola won a race. Clint Bowyer won 2 races. Kevin Harvick won, I think, 8. So that would make 12 wins, which accounts for a third of the entire NASCAR season. And Kurt Busch, he almost made the championship 4, if you remember, at 2018 in Phoenix before he got wrecked by Denny Hamlin. He was in a position to win in that 41 car. He was having one of the best seasons of his life. Despite only having 1 win, he was having a pretty good point season and was looking to be in contention for a title. But after that, after the wreck with Hamlin, Kurt Busch just missed out on it. I mean, he was crying after the race with Tony Stewart. And in an unexpected move, Kurt Busch, after one of the best seasons in his recent years, actually moved over to Chip Ganassi Racing, which was a worse team than Stewart-Haas Racing at the time. And Daniel Suarez was a free agent, and coming off of Gibbs equipment, I mean, plus bringing sponsors with him, Suarez was pretty obvious of a choice for Stewart-Haas Racing. So, again, in a car that wasn't really built for him, I don't think they expected Kurt Busch to leave at the time. And it was hard to adjust to Daniel Suarez. I mean, you got a young driver versus a seasoned vet in his first year ride with a new team, and in a car that and team that wasn't really built around him for a while. They were probably thinking that Kurt Busch was going to return, but he went to Chip Ganassi Racing instead, so they quickly had to get Suarez. I remember it was only like maybe a month or two before the season started, and is Suarez at Trackhouse Racing, it really just wasn't a recipe for success. I mean, he almost made the playoffs. He was like 30-something points out. He was on the bubble battle at Indianapolis at the season finale, but Trackhouse Racing just didn't work out with him. Then, obviously, 2020 being the worst season of his career by far. I mean, Gaunt Brothers Racing, not a lot of team with not a lot of funding. They were like a second-hand Joe Gibbs satellite team. They didn't even make the Daytona 500. It was a recipe for disaster. They didn't have a charter. They didn't have a lot of sponsors, really. Their engines weren't built good. LFR was the first JGR satellite team. Gaunt Brothers was kind of an afterthought at that point. So Daniel Suarez that season, it was just really bad for him overall. But now, enter Trackhouse Racing and Justin Marks on the scene. So this is the first time in his career that Daniel Suarez has a team that is built solely around him, that he is the prime focus of the team. I mean, Gaunt Brothers Racing was going out. Stewart Haas, he was the fourth car, and they weren't really ready for him. Joe Gibbs Racing, he was short off of Carl Edwards' retirement, and he was never the prime focus. He was always the fourth car at JGR. Now he's on a one-car team that can solely focus on him. It's got Hispanic leadership, somebody that he can really communicate with Pitbull, and a team that is really built around him. So I believe this really sets up the opportunity for success. And look, we've been seeing the results out of Daniel Suarez. I think he is 19th or 18th in the standings right now. Yeah, Stenhouse and Bubba are tied for 19th. Suarez is 18th at the moment. But we've been able to see what Daniel Suarez has really been able to do when he has a good team with a lot of chemistry that is focused solely around him. So, I mean, it's a recipe for success. And when you have a good driver like Daniel Suarez, who's been a former Xfinity Series champion, he has a lot of talent in him, and he's still pretty young. And you surround him with good people, a good crew chief, a good team owner, Justin Marks, who is driven for success, Pitbull, who also wants to win. And, one of their big things Trackhouse announced at the beginning of the season is creating a culture around NASCAR, really. And kind of creating a new modern culture into NASCAR with and trying to bring in a more Hispanic crowd, which I like. They're trying to bring more diversity into the sport. They're bringing a new face to NASCAR, just like Bubba Wallace and 23XI Racing. And you're really getting to see what all these new teams can really bring to the sport. I really think there's a new face coming to NASCAR, and it's being led by Justin Marks, Michael Jordan, Daniel Suarez, Bubba Wallace, and everybody else around at 2311 Racing and Trackhouse Racing. They've just been creating kind of a new culture for the new fan base, a more diverse fan base in NASCAR. And I really think everybody around Trackhouse really wants to win and really wants to succeed while having fun and creating that new culture. So Ty Norris, who's I think director of operations, Travis Mack, who's an amazing crew chief, RCR, who's been helping them a lot. It's a recipe for success, and this is why Trackhouse has brought in a lot of sponsors. They've brought in Pitbull, who has, like I said, big racks before. He's got a ton of money. And now they have the opportunity to expand to a two-car team because they have these two charters for 2022 in the next-gen car. So anyways, that's going to do it for this week's episode. I really hope you enjoyed my recap of the whole Trackhouse situation, along with the CGR situation as well, and the Colic situation. Please subscribe and listen more to all my episodes of the Dank NASCAR Download, available on Spotify, Apple Music, and all streaming platforms. See you guys, and peace.